Texas and Oklahoma kick it off at 11 a.m. Central Standard Time in the Red River Shootout. Joe, I got to admit, look, Texas is a really good football team. A lot of people don't know about Oklahoma because they have not been really tested. Texas has been. They came off a game against Kansas last week. They weren't looking forward. They got serious there in the second half. There have been some issues with Texas. 3 quarters against Wyoming, what they looked like offensively against a very bad team against Rice. A lot of people are wondering what's going to happen with Oklahoma. I think that last year motivates a team like Oklahoma because of what happened. I think that this is a one-score game either way. I do think that Oklahoma and Jeff Lebby in this offense is not being talked about enough. And when Dylan Gabriel and the boys go out there this weekend and put up some yards and put up some points, people will talk about them. I do think that this game's going to be won up front defensively. Whichever defensive line can get after the quarterback the most, because Quinn Ewers has been able to use his legs so far this year and pick up critical third downs along with Dylan Gabriel. Something is telling me, do not pick Texas. Something's telling me. But from what I've seen, they're a really good football team, and wouldn't surprise me if they were able to come out with the victory. What says you?
So first of all, before the Texas fans run to the comments, this is not me saying Texas is overrated. They're not going to win this game. I really think that this game is more of a toss-up, however, than many assume it is. I don't think that this is a guaranteed foregone conclusion victory for Texas. I just am skeptical of who Texas is based on who that they've played so far this year. We've already talked about it. It's a bunch of backup quarterbacks and Jalen Milroe. They haven't faced anybody impressive. I don't know what they're going to do against Dylan Gabriel. And you know what? Dylan Gabriel hasn't gotten any love this year. For him being a really solid quarterback, I would argue that he's in the top 20 quarterbacks, starting quarterbacks of college football.
Oh, I think you put him in the top 10. I mean, could you not put Dylan Gabriel in the top 10?
I don't know off the top of my head. I don't want to do the whole, I'd put him in the top 10 without actually like going through a list. And
well, I mean, I got the numbers right here. He's top 10 in every statistical category.
Well, there's part of your evidence. I see a guy that is consistent and confident, that is a really good athlete, and I think that is going to pose issues for Texas, especially because right now Texas's biggest issue, not the run defense. The run defense has been phenomenal. I'll give them a lot of credit. They have stood up and stopped a lot of really good rushing attacks so far, especially Kansas's. But their biggest issue that I've seen on film is giving up the deep ball. They have gotten cooked multiple times this season against teams that they shouldn't be getting beaten that badly on long passes. Alabama, we saw it happen multiple times. A little bit was in periods of the game where it almost didn't really matter if Alabama scored because it was too far gone for them to get back into it. And it also happened against Kansas with Bean as their starting quarterback playing in that game. They don't have any elite receivers that you should be getting beat deep that easily. I just think that this passing attack that has been really good, that is the 6th in the country right now in terms of production, is going to find those splash plays and pick up those long gains. But at the same time, Oklahoma is just as susceptible, and that's why I think it fits what you're saying, that this game is going to be a shootout.
Drunk Vigo on YouTube says crazy old Ruffino. And then Heat Broker says the only way Oklahoma wins is if Venables doesn't freeze up at the first sign of adversity. I mean, let's not have recency bias. With all due respect, so has Sarkisian in the past. You can talk about LSU's defense in the comments all you want to. Doesn't stop that they won the West. And who's your school? Because I got more. I'm going to tell you this.
All right.
More national titles than your ass does.
Stop getting baited by the LSU comments.
Well, they're in the chat just roasting me alive in here.
Okay, half the chat is people talking about Notre Dame. So let's.
Okay, that's true. All right. Joe, this is what I also think too. I think this game comes down to a lot of what Dylan Gabriel can do, right? Like I've seen what other quarterbacks have been able to do against Texas's offense. Like I've seen it. I mean, defense, excuse me. I've seen them do it. I don't know if you do some of those things that you've given up those big plays against. Now, the one where Kansas fumbled and the guy picked it up and scored, okay, whatever. But let's not act like that the quarterback didn't gain 20 yards down the field to start off with. That's still a very big play that they gave up. You can't have some of those coverage busts against DeLeone Gabriel. He will eat you alive.
Mm-hmm.
He will eat you alive. I do wonder how this game and what I do wonder in this game what Jeff Levy has cooked up. They got blanked a year ago. I don't think that they're gonna, but it's gonna bode well there. Didn't DeLeone Gabriel got hurt or was out of that game? Like he didn't even play last year. So we'll see, man. I just think that when you have other quarterbacks that have been able to have success against Texas's defense, what's for me to say that DeLeone Gabriel cannot? I have a lot of faith in DeLeone Gabriel this week. I really do.
Yeah.
Now, he might make me look like an idiot, but if I've seen JT Daniels do some good things, I've seen Jalen Milroe do some good things. DeLeone Gabriel's not going to make those same mistakes that Jalen Milroe did a couple of weeks ago. He's just not going to do it. So what happens if you get in a situation like that?
That's what it really, I think, comes down to this game is what does DeLeone Gabriel do? And this is a situation where Texas has not been tested, as we've said. I will concede this. If Texas, and I think there's a really good possibility that Texas wins, if Texas disrupts Gabriel and they play a really good game against him and maybe not completely remove DeLeone Gabriel from the game, but force a turnover, get a couple of sacks, then I'll concede that Texas is really as good as some people are painting them to be.
They will be officially. We're back.
I will put them at number 3 if they beat Oklahoma and they look really good and they beat up on DeLeone Gabriel. I am willing to put them at number 3 because that answers the remaining parts of my concerns. But right now, my concerns are that they haven't been challenged by a competent, good starting quarterback or in an explosive offense.
They haven't. They have not been tested like that. But you know what else? This is going to be a big question mark for Oklahoma's defense. I mean, we have not seen them tested either. So as much as we've not seen Texas's offense or defense get tested by a good quarterback, we also haven't seen Oklahoma's defense get really tested at all. No. Right? I mean, you got Butch Jones crying on the sidelines week 1. I mean, they have not really played anybody. I do think that this is a one-score game either way. I think it comes down to the fourth quarter. Possibly whoever has the ball last is going to go in there and score. I don't see a blowout for either side. If there's going to be a blowout, I do think Texas gets it. I really do. If there's going to be a blowout, I think Texas blows them out. But Oklahoma's got to be able to establish the line of scrimmage to some extent, get some of this running game going. And look, man, try to get as many plays in as you can. Because if you continue to run – one thing about a defense, man, if they start getting winded, you can put up as many points. Ask LSU last week, right? Yeah. You want to talk about they were talking about Brian Kelly's defense in the chat. Well, there you go. You know what's also interesting about this game? Did you see that SEC Commissioner Greg Sankey will be there? Did you see that?
Yeah, I kind of love that. I kind of love that he's going there.
What an ultimate troll.
He's watching what's his, man. It's an SEC game. I heard, I think it was Feinbaum this morning on ESPN was saying that they're considering an SEC game, which is funny because the conference is down this year. So you're claiming early the two teams that are joining before they join. But you are talking about here, one of the things that you brought up is if it does go lopsided, yes, I do agree that if it does, it's probably going to be in Texas's favor. I really like some of the things that they've done defensively. Their defensive line's been great. Jalen Ford has not been brought up enough about how freaking good of a season he's had. He's leading the team in tackles for loss, tackles, and interceptions. He is an NFL linebacker, a highly draftable one, a phenomenal athlete. He is going to be, for me, an X factor in this game, his performance, what he does. But as you've talked about, Oklahoma's offensive line is really strong. Their run game with Marcus Mosher and Tawee Walker, definitely saying that wrong, have been consistently strong. They've got other backs that they can turn to. They got to get that ground game going, as you're saying.
Well, look, Dylan Gabriel has 1,500, let's just call it 1,600 passing yards, 15 touchdowns. That's up there with the likes of Michael Penix Jr., Jaden Daniels, and others. He's completing 75% of his passes. Joe, the thing for me is I know that they've played Rudy Poo teams, okay? Yeah. Very big Rudy Poo teams. But Danny Stutzman, okay, the
linebacker.
The linebacker. He has 9 tackles for loss, Joe, 2 sacks, an interception. Key Lawrence has looked really good. Kip Lewis is another guy who's looked really good for them defensively. You know what? Everybody, when they look at Oklahoma, they see everything that's going on offensively, and I agree. And Dylan Gabriel has gone off. But, man, they got some playmakers defensively. You're not playing Lincoln Riley's defense. They got some dudes now. Can Brent – and you know what else? If Brent Venables gets this win, watch out. Because they are recruiting the defensively at a very, very high rate. The defensive line that they got coming in and recruiting is ridiculous. It is Clemson level 2018 D-line. So you better not let Venables get some momentum here, brother.
Well, one of their best defensive linemen has been a true freshman, the Adebawore kid that they have. He's already got a sack and a half already on the season. I don't know if maybe he's been playing a little bit mostly garbage time, but still, I mean, like the guy is in the reserves that you've got a freakish athlete like that on your defensive line who maybe doesn't have a massive contribution or impact this year, but down the line, he's got you bring up a really good point. I really do love what Oklahoma's done in recruiting because they are starting to build out a really, really scary defensive line.
Well, Key Lawrence is the transfer from Tennessee. He has a pair of picks. I look at Gentry Williams. He has a pair of picks. I mean, look, man, he had one against Tulsa that was absolutely ridiculous. And then Iowa State, Joe, they played Iowa State this week. They beat them 50-20. It was an outright beatdown. So like I tell you all the times, I don't trust guys that wear Velcro hats, and I sure as hell don't trust guys like Matt Campbell that bend their bill that way, and they beat them down. Like that was I was watching it today. It was an impressive win. But here's the thing, because I've talked a lot of Oklahoma here. Texas is not to be trifled with right now. Like that D-line is something serious too. This has a lot of NFL dudes on both sides of the football, and I do think that Texas can win it. I really do think they can win it. But something just continues to tell me not to lean that way.
Right. That's kind of where I'm coming from here. Everything points to Texas winning this game, and I think that it's likely maybe by a couple of points. It's going to be high scoring. It's going to be fun. I think that Texas wins because it feels like it's their year. But at the same time, I feel like they have failed to step up to the occasion a lot. And some might want to point to the Alabama win and say, that was impressive. That was them stepping up to the occasion. But we all know that Alabama team is not as good as we thought they were going into that game. We just got to be real with ourselves. There is potential for a Sarkisian-esque letdown.
You know what? Can I tell you a pet peeve of mine?
What?
Is when a team plays a very lowly Power 5 opponent and they beat the outright dog shit out of them, people come in here and say, oh, well, that team lost to Ohio. They beat the dog shit out of a Power 5 team. They can't help it. And here's another thing. You're going to convince me right now with some of the issues that Georgia has that Oklahoma might not have surprised them on a neutral field week 1?
Yeah, no, I don't disagree with that at all.